Well, hello everybody. So today's topic is going to be about compound interest. Now this video is going to assume that there's around 5 to 6% in terms of compound interest rates. So this video is going to be specifically about some calculations and some daily costs and how much these costs may actually impact your financial success. So you'll be surprised to find that little costs every day or every week actually add up to the amount of money that they do. So I have a calculator pulled up. I'm going to use, I guess I'm going to use Desmos.com, and then I'm going to have a compound interest calculator. Right? So this is for like people that are interested, like, oh, I have no money to spend at all. What do I do as far as saving money and being able to grow my contributions to saving? Um, and this is a great way to do that. You don't actually want to have money in your savings account. You actually want to invest money. Leaving it in a savings account is one of the worst things you can do because you're losing money due to inflation. So let's say, for example, that you're somebody, and plenty of people do this, but not everybody. Let's say, for example, that you're somebody that you get a coffee every day and it costs $6, right? And let's say that you do this on the way to work. So let's say you do this 5 days a week, right? And then you do this 52 weeks of the year. I know it might be a little less than that because you have some couple weeks off, but let's just say 52 weeks a year. That is actually costing you $1,560 a year. And when the median salary in America is around $60,000 a year, pre-tax, so post-tax, you're often paying a little less than 22%. I know 22% is kind of the upper portions, but let's assume around 22% tax-wise. It may be a little less. Now, the way that income tax is calculated is that, say you have a 10, 20, and 30% income tax level. So your first $10,000 that you make will be taxed 10%. So let's say that let me write this down, right? So from income less than 10,000, you pay 10% income tax. For incomes from 10 to 40,000, you pay 20% income tax. And then 40,000 plus, you pay 30% income tax. So how income tax works is essentially that first $10,000 that you make, less than, really, you'll get taxed 10%. That second $30,000 you make from 10 to 40,000, you'll pay 20% income tax on that bracket. And then $40,000 you pay those 30% income tax. So this is how generally it works. It's not necessarily like if you have a 15% income tax and you just minus it off 15%. That's not how it works. So anyways, let's get back to the point, right? If you were to deposit, so if you were to cut the coffee, for example, right? And I'm not saying that you should, but you can find cheaper alternatives to getting a coffee at a store every day. So let's just say, for the sake of it, that you cut down this expense. Let's say that you so that's $15.60, right, to get coffee 5 days a week, right? So let's say that you buy a $7 container of cold brew, because they have them at the stores, and you buy them every week. They last you a week, and that's 52. So that's 364. So when we subtract 1560, and that'll last you a week, by the way. It won't last you, because many of them are half and half water, half coffee. You're saving $1,200. So if you deposit $1,200 into an initial deposit, you have a 5% rate of return. And let's say over the next 10 years, you do this habit, and every single year you contribute $1,200, and let's say the contribution frequency is annually, right? So you will if you do this for 10 years, and this is one simple thing. Remember this. This doesn't sound that impressive, but this is one single habit, right? Your principal, how much you will contribute, like the total money that you contribute. Your initial deposit is 1,200 after a year, and then 10 years, you contribute 1,200 annually. Assuming that the compound, let's say, is annually, you will put in $13,200 and you will save almost $4,000. And that's literally if you stop going to the store 5 days a week and getting coffee, and instead you focus on getting a cold brew container. Now, really imagine this when you're talking about door dashing, for example. So let's say that you spend, I don't know. I mean, a lot of Americans are starting to cut back on fast food, but let's say that you spend $50 a week on fast food. And this might be eating at a cheap place twice with a friend, right? Or it might going to a sit-down restaurant maybe once, considering taxes and tips, right? And you do this every week per year. Well, that's $2,600. And these are just two habits. So when you spend $1,500 on the coffee, and then you eat out once a week at a sit-down fancy nice place, or twice a week at a cheap restaurant, you are paying, let's see, you are paying $4,160. And for most Americans, if you divide that by 60,000, which is the median salary, and this is, I should probably say more like 53,000 because of post-tax. This is about 8% of your total salary is being spent on two of these comfort expenses right there. So let's say that you add this in. Let's say that you save $1,200, and you save, let's say, you save the $1,200 and you spend $2,600 on the fast food, right? And instead you decide to get a cheaper alternative, which is you buy your food at the grocery store, right? So let's see, what would that be? I would say for one person, the average bill, let's see, average grocery bill for one. Let's just say for one, right? So for one, it's $238 per month. So if we want to divide that by 30, that means that you spend about $8 on that meal instead of $50. So let's say that that meal that you would have eaten per week, you spend per year. So 8 times 52, right? So you eat out once a week, and instead of eating out once a week, you buy food, you buy a meal for that day. So that would mean that you're spending $416. And when you subtract $2,600, which would be that fast food meal per week, it would be, you would save $2,100, you would save about $2,200. So when you add that up to the coffee that you're spending, it would be, let's see, $3,400, and you're contributing $3,400 per year. And these are two very, very simple things that most people do, right? Most people, and I'm not saying you don't have to totally cut out eating out. You can reduce your expenses, by going once per month, and the calculations will be a bit different. But you will, in 10 years, you will save $10,000, and that's a big deal. If you look at 20 years, right, if you're able to save up if you're able to cut down these expenses, these little expenses, and it doesn't have to be you never eat fast food. It doesn't have to be you never go to a coffee place. But if you're able to kind of reduce these basic expenses, which is pretty easy to do by finding alternatives, you could eliminate them almost completely. You will put in $71,400, assuming 5% annually. you will put in $71,400, and in 20 years, you will gain $50,000 in interest, meaning that the amount you earn is almost the amount you put in. And that's a huge deal. If we look at 30 years, you will earn $135,000 more by putting this into compound interest. And let's be clear that there are other investments that really may be that you don't want to just put in money into compound interest. You may also, if you're young, you might want to do a 90-10 investment where you're putting in 90% into aggressive kind of growth stock indices like diversified indices, or you might invest in real estate investment trusts. And these are very good investments that return pretty good. They return pretty good profits, so to speak. I have money in both real estate investment trusts. I'm 20 years old, and I have investments in diversified index funds, which we'll go on in a later video. But you can see how these basic expenses really, I mean, they really can really add up quickly. So let's say another thing. Let's say that you spend, what did we say? We said that the average grocery price for one. I love how it just doesn't, yeah, so we said it was what, about $250 per month for one person? I think it was in the 240s. So let's say that you're able to reduce that by $30, right? So so 250, this would be a reduction of about 10% of your grocery bill. So $30, and you do this for 52 times a week, you would save $1,560, right? And so this not getting the coffee and getting the coffee alternative and getting a meal at the grocery store instead of eating out, right? If you add this up to the already $3,400 that we have, you're going to save about $5,000, right? So let's say that you have an initial deposit of $5,000, right? And you contribute $5,000 annually, just based off these three simple reductions, right? Cutting off 10% of your grocery bill, approximately. Eating out seldom, right? I mean, my calculation was you would never eat out, which is not what you want to do, but you eat out very seldom. And instead of going out 5 times per week for coffee, you get a $7 bottle of cold brew per week, instead of spending $6 per day on coffee at the store 5 days a week. You get a cold brew and it lasts you a week, including weekends, right? So let's say that annually you contribute that $5,000 and initial deposit is $5,000. In 30 years, you will have if you put into compound interest, you will have $350,000. $350,000, and will gain a total of $200,000 in interest, right? And this is the other thing too, is that you can put, if you get like a house, so if you have a $60,000 a year salary and you have you get like $52,000. Let's just say, for the sake of it, that you put $5,000 away a year. That's about 1/10 of your budget. So this would be about, what, 20% of your budget? Because we're already saving $5,000. So let's say you get a car, you completely pay it off, right? A cheap car for transportation. You get a cheap house, assuming that, I mean, you can rent, but you can also pay off the house, although you have to think about insurance and other things as well, right? So let's say you save $10,000 a year. We don't even need to say that, right? Let's say you save $7,500 a year. This would be about 15% of your salary, 5% interest, and you contribute around, what would this be? $7,500 a year. That means that in 30 years with 5%, you would have $500,000. Um, so by saving 15% of your income on a $50,000 salary, you can have quite the return just on compound interest alone. In 40 years, you will have $1,000,000. So if you start by 30, by 70 years old, you'll have about $1,000,000. And look, I mean, it is hard to save. I get it. But do you see how much better off you can be with $958,000 than the average person by saving 15% of your income? And we've seen how these simple changes lead to a 10 or 15% income savings by getting a cold brew alternative instead of spending coffee every day for 5 days a week. And it would last you the whole week. By that meal, instead of going out for fast food, you're getting a grocery store meal. So $8 versus, I think we said $50, right? And by saving, what would it be? We said $5,000, saving $2,500 a year out of a $5,000 about a $50,000 post-tax salary. So about $7,500 initial deposit and $7,500 annually. You can grow, your money very quickly. Now there are other things like college debt, and there's other things that you have to consider. But really, I mean, just by doing these basic kind of savings, you can save a lot of money on compound interest. So again, your coffee per day, or that meal that you eat out once a week at a restaurant, spending $50 like at a sit down, or maybe that whatchamacallit, that new what would be like a medium size expense, that new table that you got, that new furniture that you decided to get, because you had a little quote unquote spare money. It can literally cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in the long term. Anyways, that's all. See ya.